Has Nia DaCosta taken the MCU and the Captain Marvel franchise and character higher, further, faster with this sequel for the Marvels? We got a lot to discuss. And welcome to my Safe Gayven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video and joining me for another early screening review here on the BlackGayComicGeek channel. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, let me say thank you so much for stopping by my channel, checking out the video. Let me introduce myself. My name is Michael. I call myself the BlackGayComicGeek. And I always say the things that I love to talk about on my channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic, or any variation of the four. So I like to talk about nerd stuff, superheroes, video games, comic books, etc. And of course, I like to talk about black representation and queer representation. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you think representation matters and through representation it equals normalization, do me a favor, stop by the channel on a regular, become one of my subscribers, which I call my Safe Gayveneers. And then also, whether you're subscribed, hopefully you subscribe while you're watching the video, but you can also do me a favor and hit the like button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm and getting this video out there, my channel out there, so I can continue to grow. As I always say in most of my videos, hopefully you'll watch to the end, like, share, comment, interact on this video for the all gay rhythm. Now, with that said, guys, we are here to talk about probably one of my most anticipated Marvel properties coming out of 2023. And it is the Nia DaCosta directed movie, The Marvels, technically the sequel to the 2019 Captain Marvel movie. I am pretty much fresh out of the theater, but the review embargo doesn't lift until tomorrow at noon. So by the time you see this video, it'll be Wednesday at 12 noon or whenever you watch this video. So the synopsis for The Marvels is Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, has reclaimed her identity from the tyrannical Kree and taken revenge on the Supreme Intelligence. However, unintended consequences see her shouldering the burden of a destabilized universe. When her duties send her to an anonymous wormhole linked to the Kree revolutionary, her powers become entangled with two other superheroes to form The Marvels. But yeah, like I said, this was like my most anticipated MCU property to come out of 2023, mostly because of the stuff surrounding this movie. Like, I was excited about Nia DaCosta, a black woman, getting a chance to direct a Marvel property, making her the first black woman to direct a Marvel movie. She's only the 5th black director to be allowed the opportunity to direct a movie with over $100 million budget. I was excited to see Teyonah Parris's Monica Rambeau return on the big screen, because I was a big fan of the character of Monica Rambeau from the comics and Teyonah Parris's portrayal of her in WandaVision. Like, her character, Monica Rambeau, she was the first female Captain Marvel in the comics. She was leader of the Avengers at one point. She's arguably more powerful than Carol Danvers. So I was excited to see her finally get her chance to shine in a leadership role, because, you know, the movie is The Marvels. It's all three of them. And speaking of, I was also excited to see Iman Vellani, because if you have not seen her Disney Plus show, Miss Marvel, you're missing out, because Iman Vellani, like, she's a superstar, both on screen and off screen. And I just love every time I see her on camera. So just getting to see those things, I was excited about this movie. But with that said, my excitement for this movie dropped significantly because Secret Wars has been, and I know it has nothing to do with like Nia DaCosta, but it's still part of the MCU. But I'm like, Secret Wars was trash. I might be the only one, but I'm really not feeling this season of Loki. And then also Nia DaCosta talked about in an interview where she said she wanted this movie to be super zany and wacky because she feels like a lot of MCU movies aren't that, and she wanted to inject that in this movie. And I'm just like, there's been like 31 movies in the MCU. This movie, I believe, makes 32. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I'm like, damn near all the Marvel movies have been zany and wacky. So I'm just like, that comment alone kind of makes me nervous, because are you making it more MCU than the MCU? Because a lot of times the MCU will always throw like the joke to cut the tension, and sometimes the joke wasn't necessary. Like let the drama and the tough moments linger. But a lot of times the MCU doesn't do that, and I feel like they try to continue to retell or replay the whole like Joss Whedonisms that started with the first Avengers movie and with the quips and the banter. And sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes things just need to be dramatic. It doesn't always have to have a joke in there. So I was just like, that makes me nervous. And then the final thing is this movie comes out officially tomorrow. When this video comes out, it will be Wednesday at noon. And the movie comes out on Thursday for general audiences. And the review embargo lifted today. The social media reactions lifted at midnight today. Wednesday, soon as it hits, so Tuesday night, soon as it hits midnight at Wednesday, it is now Wednesday, the social media reactions lifted. So I'm like, y'all aren't allowing reviews to come out until 24 hours before the movie comes out. That's not a good sign. More times than not, when a studio does not allow reviews to come out until about 24 hours before the movie releases, that means the studio has no faith in this movie because the studio knows that this movie is going to be bad. So they don't want the reactions to come out before the review. They're hoping if the reviews only come out 24 hours before the movie, people won't pay attention or they won't see the reviews, so they'll still go see the movie. And that's generally the case. More times than not, that's always the case. Obviously, there are some exceptions. And so because of that, I leaned over to my friend who was my +1 in this movie, and I said to him, I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you think this movie is going to be? Like, I was nervous. I was scared. I thought this movie was going to be terrible. But with that said, I am more than happy to report that I had an absolute blast watching the Marvels. I had fun. I really enjoyed this movie. Pretty much all the jokes landed for me. And speaking of Iman Vellani being the star, she was definitely the best part of this movie. She was definitely the heart and soul and spirit of this movie. And she was my favorite part of this movie. And seeing, like, if you think about the character of Kamala Khan in the comics, she herself is a fan of the superheroes. And obviously she's a superhero herself. She lives and works with Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, etc., etc. So she's a super fan. She writes fanfic, all of that stuff. And funny enough, Iman Vellani herself says, like, when she knew about the role of Kamala Khan, she said, that is me. Like, because she writes fanfic. She's a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Comics. And the character of Kamala Khan, she's basically us as fans reading comics in the superhero circumstances. And like all of her reactions and how she just portrayed and relished in the fact that she got to interact with Monica and Carol and be with the Skrulls and like that whole dynamic, like it was super fun to watch. I was just smiling from ear to ear with a lot of Iman Vellani's line delivery and just seeing Kamala Khan interact with these two basically giant superheroes. And she definitely held her own. She didn't feel like a weak link within the trio of the Marvels. And that's the thing that I also really enjoyed about this movie. It felt like a trio. Every single character, Kamala, Monica, and Carol, all had their moments to shine. It wasn't like you think about like something like another trio where it was like the first 3 seasons of Charmed. Now, don't get me wrong. I really like Charmed. I'm looking over there because I have all 8 seasons on DVD. But don't get me wrong. I really like Charmed, especially the first 3 seasons. But at the same time, when Shannon Doherty was on the show, Prue, it did really feel like Prue and her sisters. It didn't feel like the power of 3. It felt like Prue and them. And it became more of a trio and more equal when Paige came into the picture and they divided the status and relation. Like it felt more like the power of 3, basically. I'm not going to go into a whole review of Charm because this isn't a Charm review, but I say that to say like it didn't feel like Carol and her friends or Carol and them. No, this movie was the Marvels and they all had their role and had their strengths to play, and I really enjoyed their dynamic and their chemistry together. I thought they played really well together. And also I feel like especially Monica and Kamala, like seeing them interact with Carol, it made me really love the character of Carol Danvers more, because I didn't hate the first Captain Marvel movie like a lot of people, and I don't hate Brie Larson. Like, a lot of people rage and they, like, I don't know, they have such a visceral reaction when it comes to Brie Larson. Like, I just don't get it. And a lot of people are saying, like, oh, she can't act, yada, yada, yada. Like, she's an Oscar-winning actress. Granted, that doesn't always mean anything. But, like, I saw her and I did a review of the movie Just Mercy, and that movie had me crying. And part of what had me crying was Brie Larson's performance in Just Mercy. So she's not a bad actor. I just thought, like, when it came to Captain Marvel, I wasn't a fan of a lot of her line delivery. And there's still some of that in this movie. Like, I feel like she's still kind of finding herself as Carol Danvers, but through the interactions with Monica and Kamala, like, I like the character of Carol. They made her better. They made her more interesting. They made her more fun to watch. And now I'm like, I can't wait to see Carol interact with these characters even more. What's next in store for Carol Danvers? What's next in store for Captain Marvel? And so, yes, the chemistry of these three was on point. And speaking of being on point, another thing that I really enjoyed in this movie that I wasn't even expecting to enjoy as much, like, the fight choreography and the way the camera moved as they were fighting and then switching powers, which isn't a spoiler because it was in the trailer. That's pretty much all you see in the trailer. Like, one thing I was like, and that's also one thing I was like, I was saying, I don't know how good this movie is going to be, because I was like, in the trailers, I don't even know what this movie is about other than the fact that they're switching powers. But what else is this movie about? Like, what is the actual plot other than them switching powers? But obviously you learned that throughout the movie. But, like, the way they, like, did, like, the camera work and the cinematography of them fighting, not even just in the power switch, but them just fighting and doing punches and kicks and jumps, and the way the camera moved with them doing the weapon work. And there was a moment where a weapon went behind, like, Monica's back and Carol grabbed it from, I was like, oh, that was a beautiful shot. Like, there were a lot of beautiful shots and great moments with the fight choreography and the score that went with the fight choreography. Like, I had a lot of fun in those moments. And also, in terms of fun, I was surprised and pleasantly surprised by how much Kamala Khan's family played into this movie. It almost kind of reminds me of how Blue Beetle's family was throughout the entire movie. And Kamala Khan's family played a huge role in her Disney Plus show. But I thought with it being, you know, the Marvels, once we get into the whole superhero aspect, we're not really going to see her family anymore. And that was a choice that they could have made. But no, and that's one thing I appreciate about Nia DaCosta is she had her family basically play a role throughout the entire movie. They were there from pretty much start to finish. And her family and the dynamic that Kamala has with her family, her brother, her sister, her mother, her father, it was great. And then the jokes that they brought to the screen, especially being almost kind of a fish out of water in this situation of, like, yeah, Kamala protected Jersey City, but for the most part, she's not a superhero in the sense of, like, fighting an alien invasion or going to space. And her family's definitely hasn't had to deal with that, but now they're being thrown into that situation and their reactions to it. Like, it was all like, again, I had a blast watching this movie. And there's so much that I want to talk about, but it's not, obviously this is a non-spoiler review. The movie's not officially out yet. But there's also, like, but I think Nia DaCosta did a great job in making this, like, I understand what she was saying about the zany and wacky, but it wasn't like the MCU, like, oh, here we go again with the MCU jokes. Like, no, all of the jokes landed, all of the moments landed, and a lot of it did come from Kamala and Iman Vellani's delivery, but it wasn't just her. It was certain scenes and circumstances and situations that the characters were put in. It was coming from Kamala Khan's family, some of it from Nick Fury, and some of the things that and lines that he said, Samuel L. Jackson. And just, like, for the most part, I have no real complaints with regards to this movie. Like, yeah, there are some things that I wasn't a fan of, and it's more spoiler territory, so I'm not going to talk about that. But it's not so much that it lowered my excitement or lowered my reaction or lowered my review of the movie. And maybe part of that is because I ended up going in with such low expectations based on all the stuff that I listed. But I had a lot of fun. But with that said, talking about big complaints, I will say, because this movie was hella short, I do wish that there were certain moments that we got to see expounded upon. Like, obviously, if you've seen the first Captain Marvel movie and then you also seen WandaVision, we know there's some tension between Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau. Monica hasn't seen Carol since she was a little girl. Remember at the end of Captain Marvel, she said she'll be back. And she never, obviously what we know from WandaVision, we haven't seen Carol back. She hasn't come back to Earth. And in that time, her mother's died. Her mother's died of cancer. And this is her aunt. This is the other person that's taking care of her. This is the only other family that she has. And more or less, Monica feels abandoned. And we do get to see some of that resolution and that character moment, and the two of them finally get to talk. But because the movie is so short, we didn't live in that as long as I would have liked. I would have liked more conversation between the two of them regarding the fact, because again, she's Auntie Carol to Monica. Granted, Monica's an adult now, and for whatever reason, because of her powers, Carol Danvers doesn't age, so they're technically now the same age. But at the end of the day, that's still her Auntie Carol. That's still her superhero, somebody that she looked up to, somebody that she lived on every word, just like with her mother. And so, yeah, I wish that we got a little bit more of the emotional moments and beats with her and Monica. And then also more emotional beats between Kamala and Carol. Like, that's her idol. That's somebody that she looks up to. Granted, we got it, but I wish there was a little bit more. But because the runtime was so short, it's like we gotta move on to the next thing. We gotta move on to the next thing. I wish this movie maybe added an extra 20 minutes to get those types of scenes. And speaking of adding another 20 minutes, like, I wish there was a little bit more added dialogue and moment, because there's a cameo in this movie that I'm not going to say who or what, when, why, where, how, whatever. I think they show it in the trailer, but I haven't seen any of the trailers other than like the first one. So I'm not going to say who it is. Granted, it might be in the trailer. I think it's in the trailer, but I'm not going to say it. But I'm like, I wish they expounded upon this more, because I kind of feel like, what was the point if they're going to do it but not go all the way with it? I'll talk more about that in the spoiler section. That's one of my complaints with the movie. I'm just like, what is that? And again, if you haven't seen the movie, or if this person's not in the trailer, what I'm saying is very vague, but that's all I'm gonna say. After you see the movie, you could probably figure out what I'm talking about, but what was that? But with that said, obviously this movie is not perfect. There are things that this movie could have done better, and it's really just a lingering MCU problem. And being that I said lingering MCU problem, most people probably figured it out already, but it's with regards to the character, the villain of the movie. Marvel really has a problem telling compelling and giving us compelling villains. And the thing about this story, and what makes it even more sad though, is this villain's backstory and her motivation. It could have been a very compelling story, almost in a Thanos-like type of way, in terms of like why she was doing the things that she was doing. And you could have made it way more interesting than it was, because in some ways, what she was doing wasn't necessarily bad. Like, she was justified in what she was doing. And in some ways, how she was doing it, she was kind of justified in that too. But they didn't really dive into it enough and give her enough to make it more interesting. It was basically almost kind of like a throwaway villain. I don't think she's the worst villain in the MCU, because I saw somebody say like she's the worst villain in the MCU. I don't think she's the worst villain in the MCU. I still think that goes to Malekith in Thor: The Dark World, but I'm not gonna remember her in like T-minus 30 days from now or whatever. Like, she's not gonna go down in the top 10 Marvel villains in history or whatever, but I feel like there was a huge missed opportunity there, considering her backstory, that they could have developed her more with regards to all of that. So that's a miss in terms of like this particular movie, but I still had fun. And I gotta say, like, the way this movie ended got me so excited, because what they're teasing for the future, it is something that I've been wanting and calling for and hoping for the longest time. And we finally got an official tease. And I'm just like, oh my God, Marvel, you better not make me wait for it. Please, oh please, oh please. And then speaking of, this is another thing, that post-credit scene. Make sure you stay to the end of the movie, or rather the mid-credit scene, because there's no post-credit scene. Post-credit, like after all the credit, or maybe, I don't know if they probably hit it for the screener, but at least what I saw, there was no, like once the credits are all done, a post-credit scene. There was no post-credit scene, but that mid-credit scene, I was just like, oh wow, we're doing this, okay. But I will talk more about, because again, there's some issues I have with that as well. I'll get more into that again when I talk spoilers. But I was just like, okay, so here we go. But so definitely stay and check out the mid-credit scene. But again, I had fun watching this movie. Exactly what I was hoping for is what I got. And honestly, I hope they bring Nia DaCosta back to do a third. Would it technically be a third Captain Marvel movie, or would it be the Marvels 2? Because I hope they bring these three characters back together as the Marvels. But hopefully Nia DaCosta comes back and gets another shot at doing another movie with these guys. And also, I remember I saw an interview with her recently, and she talked about this a couple months ago, saying that she would love to direct a Storm and Cyclops solo movie, team up movie. Marvel, give me that right now. Like, give me not only a Storm and Cyclops movie with them together, because for the most part, even though they've been on a team together, we don't really get, especially with them being the two leaders of the X-Men, we don't get a lot of moments with just them. We got one issue of it recently in this new age of Krakoa. I think it was the very first issue of this new X-Men era, like 2019 era that we're in, where Storm and Cyclops led a mission. It was just the two of them. And I was like, why haven't we gotten more of this? So yeah, give me a Storm and Cyclops solo movie, Marvel. Directed by Nia DaCosta, since she's the one that pitched it. Like, come on. And hopefully this isn't her last movie and forego or whatever, hurrah, in the MCU. But me, yeah, like I said, I had a lot of fun with the Marvels, but that's enough about me ranting. I already gave my review. My social media reaction is on X. So that's pretty much all I got to say. But after you guys see the Marvels, what did you think about the movie? Because all art is subjective, so you might go into it and hate it. I actually saw one person post their social media review and they absolutely hated the movie. So, and I was just like, oh wow. I'm not gonna say I loved it. No, this isn't Winter Soldier. It's not Infinity War or anything like that. It's not the best of Marvel, but it's nowhere near the worst. And I enjoyed this movie more than the first Captain Marvel movie. So I would totally see this movie again. I would probably, because I think I've seen Captain Marvel maybe twice. I would watch this movie more than twice. So like, I'm probably going to see it again this weekend. So with that said, after you guys see the Marvels, report back to here. Let me know all of your thoughts about the Marvels. Let me know what you thought. No spoilers, but let me know all of your thoughts about the movie. Let me know what you thought about the post-credit scene. Let me know what you thought about the ending of the movie and all of that stuff in the comment section below. Before you see the movie, your anticipation. Are you anticipating this movie? What are your predictions, your thoughts? All of that stuff in the comment section below. Also, if you can, please hit that like button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm and getting this video out there and my channel out there. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, please check out the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, please subscribe for more and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.